name's Keith Hacke. I'm from St. Louis University, and this is kind of a special talk, I guess, in terms of some things that we did to win an HPC grant. Silicon Mechanics here is the folks we won it from. And as we started putting this together, I worked on several different proposals at the university, some NSF and NIH, some private contracts, and in some of those cases, just contributing small amounts. But in this case, we kind of oversaw the whole process of getting involved with this vendor proposal. So I'll go through kind of the steps. These are kind of the steps of how I outlined this. Talk about the background, getting champions set up, build your proposal team. Very important part, you're going to see a lot of slides on this, is understanding the vendor and the partners that are offering the grant. Build upon recent successes, a lot of writing and rewriting going on, final touches, and submit your winning proposal, and then post-award. So if you come out to the display area, we got a little booth there. I brought a couple of these case studies that we worked on with Silicon Graphics, and actually they're in all the binders, so from Silicon Mechanics, that talks about the research we're doing. I didn't bring the actual proposal, but if you want to give me a card or something afterwards, I would share the proposal with you. It's I don't have a problem sharing that. I think it's been released to a couple different people, so if you want to see what we actually wrote, that's okay. And we won this back in March of 12, so just a little over a year ago. Back in November of 11, Art Mann sent some emails around. I didn't know Art at the time. I didn't even know who Silicon Mechanics was. And our faculty were circulating this around a little bit. And we got on the list somehow. Someone forwarded over to ITS. And we were kind of watching and seeing if anything was happening. And the faculty are always busy, and that time of year is busy. His finals are coming up, and Thanksgiving is in there. And we were keeping an eye on it, and we looked at the hardware and go, well, this is something we should try. And the competition looked pretty good. It looked like it was going to be a fair competition. It was a great idea. The hardware was something that was going to be very helpful for us. So we started the process and pulled together a team of people that were interested in working on it, and kept working on it over the holidays, and then really hit it hard in January when we came back. One thing is we had enough time, and that's always the case. You need a couple of months to get these things going. Don't try that. If you're trying it 3 or 4 weeks before due date, it's going to be tough, unless you really have a group of faculty who are going to be able to kind of stop what they're doing and help you. The other thing that I would recommend, someone has to be the champion of this. Someone has to keep bringing the folks together and keep bringing them together. There's often a lot of administrative work, just getting meetings set up, coordinations of discussions, getting people together at different levels. And this is a tough one. Sometimes you send out emails or you leave voicemails and you don't get any response. Well, don't necessarily give up or think that's an expression of no interest. It may be that faculty are very, very busy at that time, and faculty are always busy. And they have their own cycles and their own agendas that they're working on, and it helps to understand some of those, but also, get their attention at the right time. And sometimes that's, hey, you see them in the buying lunch on campus somewhere, and you have a 5-minute talk and say, hey, we really are interested. Are you interested? And you can at least find out if they are in person, and then keep that in mind so you can pull them in at the right time. Your champion should also be a pretty high-level individual. In this case, we had the Director of Advanced Technology Group was involved, and the Assistant Director of Research Technology. And that's pretty high level. It's right below, in this case, right below the CIO. So we kind of brought this together from an IT perspective to get this going. And then I've already said, be sure there's enough time to create the submission. You're going to want maybe 8 weeks, 2 months, something like that. One of our faculty, and I left his name off, said organizing faculty from different departments to write a cohesive grant is like herding cats. And that's true. You really have to be patient. You have to know these guys. You have to know what they're working on and get their attention. But when you get their attention, they'll do some fantastic work for you. We had an administrative team that some people had very, very minor roles, like the VP of Research. Now that's a very important position, and a lot of people know the VP of Research, And he would just say, this is important. If you have time to work on it, we appreciate your help. He'd send a few emails. Not a whole lot of work from him, but still, it was showing the faculty that it was important. I already talked about the assistant director, VP and chief technology officer, so we had our CIO that was helping with that. Advanced technology, that's the group that does our HPC, so we brought them in. The department chair of chemistry was very supportive. Again, didn't really do a whole lot of work, but he was able to know this was going on, and I suspect behind the scenes that he was seeing faculties at meeting and saying, how's that proposal going? Are you guys getting what you need? Also be sure you get marketing and communications involved. Sometimes these deals require communications on the back end, and you want to do some marketing, and we've really done a lot of that. But you want to make sure your marketing communications people are okay with it. Also, by having your VP of research, you'll know if there's any special procedures you might need to follow to be sure you can submit a proposal, because there often are rules within each organization about what you can apply for and things like that. And interns, I'm going to talk about interns. They're very, very helpful. Participation at the administrative side, again, shows faculty the support for this, that this isn't something we're just dumping on them. Actually, we're here to help them, to bring together all the great ideas that they're trying to do. You want to engage faculty that are committed to the process. And in this case, you can see we have 6 or 7 different departments here. So there's a wide variety of people who came to the first couple of meetings and were interested in participating in this, and they had science that they could actually run on an HPC. We wanted to identify the research of interest to the faculty and that fit the grant proposal. So, and I'm going to talk about more about understanding what the proposal is. So we have an administrative team now, and we have a group of faculty who are interested. Let's get together and start meeting and getting this going. One of the things we needed to do in terms of winning the grant was really understand why the vendor was offering this proposal. Now, if you're doing an NIH grant and government, federal grants, they're very clear on maybe what their reasons are, how the awards are going to be awarded and all that. This is very different. You're working with a vendor who may have other motives. They may be looking at the commercial aspects. It might just be a charitable donation. What's the deal? They'll probably have partners too who also have interest in what they're doing to give this particular set of equipment away. So what we did was we thoroughly reviewed the websites. We looked at the proposal itself. We wanted to understand the rules and procedures and applications, of course, so that we were sending in the right size document and on time, and we were following the right, you didn't want to be dismissed for a technicality. If you can, and sometimes when you're doing federal grants, there's not much communications because they have to treat everybody fair, which means treat everybody exactly the same. I think there's different definitions of fair, which is, hey, you give people information they need at the time they need it. And vendors might be more reasonable with that. If you have different questions, they might be able to answer those questions for you and be very open. And in this case, we did. We asked a couple of questions, which are very instrumental in our proposal, because we were having internal discussion about, should we write one comprehensive proposal that pulled all of this radically different science together, or should we do competing separate multiple proposals that come from St. Louis University? And when we talked to the vendor, in this case Silicon Mechanics, it appeared that they were more interested in a more holistic. So that's how we formulated it. Instead of having 7 separate proposals, which was one idea, we decided to integrate them together and then build upon that as a strength in our proposal. And I kind of already talked about this. Why is the vendor and their partners donating this equipment? What are their objectives and goals? And learning what those were. And one of the things that we learned too was there were some fairly sophisticated technologies that each of the vendors was promoting within their product sets. Okay, can we use that in our science? Can we use that in the research we're doing? And I'll show you some examples of how we did that. So and again, here's understanding the partners. So we had all these partners involved, and so we started looking at those partners as well. Why is Kingston here? Why is NVIDIA and QLogic? What are they bringing to the table technically that would help? When you're doing all this, keep notes, because you're probably going to be doing this over a 2-month period. We happen to be a Google shop, so we could use the Google shared documents, which are really easy to publish, and everybody can join in, and you can manage all that within the team. You don't have to go back to IT and get anything special set up. And review it before you start writing, because there might be some tips and things you learned 4 or 5 weeks ago and now you're getting ready to write. And then use this as an overlay within your proposal, and I'm going to give you an example of that. You want to sprinkle in what you learned about the vendor's reasons for doing this on top of the science that you're proposing to use. Sidebar and interns. I'm going to bring this up in a couple of ways, but for now, we had a set of interns that had been working with our advanced technology group for a couple of years, and they were pretty reasonable Linux system administrators. They knew how the cluster worked. They could write some code in the cluster. And they had worked on a couple of other projects that we could build on success. So I had a pretty good technical crew of people. And you can see a couple of them sitting over there. They were actually guys that could go out and on their weekends, you know, they were building Linux machines. I always laugh because we populated this intern lab. We put PCs in there with Windows, and we put Macintoshes in there with Mac OS on them. And after the interns were in there for about 2 or 3 weeks, all that was cleared out. They had re-imaged everything with Linux. They didn't want to on their systems, and they were just running Linux, and they loved it. So they had a real technical flair, and I'll bring that back too. And they had, some of them had worked on this earlier Army contract for computational fluid dynamics, and had been involved with that. This is some old equipment that we used to build an old 32-bit Linux cluster. Some of you are probably looking at that going, Linux works, I mean, that's a really old company. Boeing had actually donated it to us without any disk drive, so it came with no software, nothing. And over the course of about a year, they actually reassembled it and got it all running for a test environment that the students could play with. So we studied what the vendor's purpose was. We studied what our backgrounds and successes are. And then we started, when we started writing, we were adding in the overlays here. So we have some statements, and if you need a copy of this, there's some out on the board area, or I can get you a copy, leave me your card. But we started putting, after we wrote and rewrote, then we kind of went back and started adding in sentences that we thought would catch the vendor's eye. And you know, the first one was they wanted to see multiple vendors. Well, on page 1 is this first quote. So we're undertaking research that's involving these 6 departments. Also on page 1 is some fairly technical concepts about using the Opteron series processors and the Flex FP technology. How did we get that? Well, over the course of just a couple of days, we took the equipment list that the vendors had given us, and we said, hey, you interns, go research all this and give us all the technical jargon that's coming from these guys on what features and functions are in their hardware and software that might be interesting, and how can we then map it to the science. So we had the interns get together with the faculty who had already written paragraphs about the science they were going to do, and they started discussing how the technology worked with the faculty, and then the faculty says, well, I could use that in this particular aspect. So we'd add some sentences in that were mapping the technology and what the vendors were talking about to the actual science we were doing. And we could take advantage of these things in the actual jobs we're doing. So we started sprinkling that in. There's multiple examples here of how we're going to use these different things, and how can you map GPUs and CUDA back into digital humanities? Well, we had a couple of ways of doing that, and I think it worked out very well because we really mapped back in how the science was going to use the specifics of the technology. You also want to build on previous successes. This was a minor thing, but it was a good thing. One of our instructors in computer science had run the NVIDIA Center of Excellence Award just recently, and we put a little bit about that in too. We also had applicable presentations and papers. Now obviously in an NIH or NSF grant, you're going to have a lot of that. They're going to require it. But we sprinkled a little bit in that made sense. And you know, it's got the old snowball effect of grants and contracts that you do some publishing and you get more publishing, and then maybe you reach out and you network and you do more publishing. Maybe you win a small contract, then maybe you get a little bit of a small, maybe you partner on an NSF grant, and maybe you get your own NSF grant. Well, kind of the same thing here. You want to build on those things and different things that have been done that show you know what you're doing, and sprinkle that into the proposal too. One of the things we did, let's see, some of this is a little loud. Okay, no, this is what I want. After we had done a lot of the research of what we were doing, We decided we wanted to emphasize the collaboration with the group, and we wanted to break the work up into groups that could do the right thing. So the researchers, of course, are going to go out. These are the principal investigators. We basically didn't give them a whole lot of work to do. We said, write a couple paragraphs about your science. Well, they can do that in an afternoon. This isn't something that's going to take them 10 days to do or anything. It might take them duration to get it back to us, but through a couple of rewrites and things, we had the 6 different paragraphs that we wanted to put in about each of the science areas. The intern information, again, we sprinkled that in as high-tech connections between the science and the hardware. And then champions we did the introduction and the conclusion because we could bookend it. We knew the whole process. The champions knew what everybody was doing. You could see the end-to-end process, whereas each individual group was doing the work that they were doing. And then you would pull together into one document and rewrite in one voice and one style so that it looks like it's cohesive. Because you know how that can be. I've been on an NSF grant, and they're always tight timelines, but you end up looking at the document and you can tell 5 people wrote it. It doesn't have a flow of one person. And those things may get written down, I don't know, but we certainly wanted to get past that here and make it look like it was a very integrative, collaborative effort, which it indeed was. Rewrite, send this out. We sent this out to all of the different sponsors. We sent it out to all the researchers, of course. We wanted to make sure everybody was agreeing with what was being said and what we were promising we were going to do versus what we were committed to do. Get signatures was a challenge. We had a signature page with 10 people on it. Well, that's one piece of paper that has to be routed to 10 people. Got to watch for vacations and faculty out of the office. And something like that can take 3 or 4 days. And if it's 2 days before your deadline, you might run into trouble. Watch your schedule. Watch your schedule. We actually did a lot of the incorporation of the technical terms at the end within probably the last week. And so you want to go back and review all that material that you learned about the vendor, and then just take a little bit of time to make sure that that's sprinkled in there very well. And get your past successes and citations. We added a few of those. We had to watch the length of the document. In one conversation with the vendor, we learned that the actual length of the document was a little bit of a soft line. I think it was 7 pages, and it's okay if it's 8 or 9 pages. They didn't probably want much more than that. So we overflowed a little bit, but we got it in there. And then we won. So we submitted our proposal, and I guess it was a couple months later, however long it was, I don't remember, we got our win back, which was very, very exciting for the university. This was it as it was getting ready to ship. It was very timely for us too. I think we had mentioned this, but we didn't write it into our proposal. Our existing cluster was getting to be 3 or 4 years old, and because of the way the software was deployed, it was kind of really hard to upgrade other than bare metal. So what turned out is our thinking, and then later we actually committed to it. We took the new hardware and set it up as a brand new cluster, and then we were using it to migrate our old cluster too. And we actually adopted the software that was an option with this. Bright Computing, who's here also, has a commercial version of HPC software. And when we looked at that and evaluated it, we thought it would work better for the university than using the ROCS cluster software, which is the free open source stuff. They're both good, but in this case, we decided to go with commercial just for a little bit extra help that we needed. So there it is, and it's been racked and stacked and running back at campus for about a year now, and doing very well. We've moved over some very important research to it, and we're slowly moving in all of our old compute nodes to it. And our old compute nodes are actually very good. They're the C6100s from Dell. So there it is. One thing you want to keep track of too is publicity. Some schools may have different opinions of this, and you want to know what your marketing communication and how it's going to react with your policies and so forth. We're very encouraging of that at St. Louis University, so our marketing communications folks has actually helped coordinate some of this. But I've been trying to keep up with different places that this gets published and who's won what, and just keep track of it, because hopefully you're going to use it on the next time you do either commercial or government proposal. If you want to see more about what it specifically SLU did, Silicon Mechanics has been doing this for 2 years. I think they're going to do it for the 3rd year. And you could use this page. There's some testimonials out there, and there's going to be a new case study that we're hoping to get done here shortly. And you can kind of see what our scientists are doing with the cluster, and a little bit about how we won and so forth. And we wanted to just do a shout out to Tufts, and there is a very good video down there too, which I think will be good information too if you plan to submit a proposal in next year. Take a look at that video. I used a couple of comments out of there and integrated it into this presentation. And thank you to Silicon Mechanics, who, as a result, we've had extra relationships develop with them as a result of winning this. And we did reach out and ask them to sponsor the event here, and they came forth with the barbecue dinner, so we appreciate that. That's it.